welcome to Lab Podcast. I am Sarah Stagander, and today I'll be talking about the parasite known as Giardia Lamblia. Just a brief overview about what this video is about. So we'll be mainly talking about Giardia Lamblia, including its life cycle, the pathogenesis, clinical manifestation, along with how it can be diagnosed in the laboratories with the treatment and control mechanism. So Giardia lamblia is a intestinal protozoan or flagellate, and when I say flagellate, it must have given you a hint that it has something to do with flagella. So yeah, this parasite has flagella, which can help in locomotion. And later on in the video, we'll be looking at other features this parasite has. Moving on, it causes an enteric infection in the gastrointestinal, mainly the small intestine known as giardiasis, and upon site of infection, the place where it matures and divides itself, it's in the small intestine, particularly the duodenum and upper part of the jejunum. So the transmission mode for Giardia lamblia is the fecal oral route, whereby this parasite can contaminate food and water source in which it can be later ingested by the person, and this could cause an infection. It is really rare, but however, it can also be transmitted through unprotected anal sex. And lastly, is the unhygienic sanitary condition or practices that can transmit Giardia. Looking into the epidemiology of this parasite, it is a globally prevalent parasite, meaning it can be found worldwide. However, its prevalence is higher in countries where there is poor water quality, meaning that people have less access to clean water, and it can also be higher in areas where there is inadequate water treatment. For example, if sewage water is not adequately treated, this could lead to the human feces leaking into water bodies such as the river, lakes, and creeks. And moreover, it can also be high in areas where there is unhygienic practices going on and poor sanitation. So some risk groups that have a higher chance of acquiring this parasite are hikers who drink untreated stream waters, children in daycare centers, and patients in mental hospitals. They are more prone to this parasite infection because of unhygienic practices, like coming into contact with soil and water that has been contaminated with this parasite. So let's look at the classification of Giardia lamblia. They fall under the kingdom Protista, subkingdom as Protozoa, phylum as Saccharomysticophora, and organisms from this group usually has flagella, and Giardia lamblia also has flagella, with the subphylum as Mysticophora and class as Zoomysticophora. We know that the genus is Giardia, with the species known as Giardia lamblia. So this parasite exists in two forms, the trophozoite form and the cyst form. So this table just outlines the differences between the two forms, trophozoite and cyst form. You can go ahead and pause the video and just have a glance and a brief idea of the differences between them. I'll be explaining the differences using the diagram. So in the diagram under trophozoite, it was written that it has a tennis racket shape. By that, you might have been able to guess that B is a trophozoite while A is a cyst. So let's look at the features and compare them. So B, when we look at B, trophozoite, so trophozoite has flagella. And flagella, we know that they help in locomotion, meaning they help the parasite move. Another important feature that trophozoite has is the sucking disc, and this sucking disc helps them to adhere to the mucosal membrane of the small intestine. They both have exonemes which help them to provide nourishment. They provide nutrients to the parasite in order to survive. Also, cyst has two pairs of nucleus while trophozoite has only one pair of nucleus. Cyst has a cyst wall, and this cyst wall helps them to survive in harsh environment. And when we look at this feature, trophozoite do not have a wall, so they cannot survive in harsh environments. So cyst is the only form that can help cause infection in a human being. Having a brief understanding on the two morphology, let's dive into the life cycle. Just an important note, the Giardia Lamblia completes its life cycle in just one host. So I have just simplified the life cycle into five simple steps, and the first one is the ingestion of cyst. Obviously, as I stated earlier, that cyst is the main route in which it can cause an infection because it is able to thrive in harsh conditions. So cyst is ingested inside the human maybe through contamination of water or food source. Once it is inside the organism, it moves on to the small intestine. Here, what happens is that the cyst goes and adheres to the mucosal membrane of the duodenum. So, once inside the small intestine, what happens here is that the cyst is able to produce two trophozoites, and this process is known as excistation. So once excistation takes place, what happens is that the trophozoite, two trophozoites which have been produced, is going to undergo asexual reproduction. Through binary fission, they are able to multiply, and once they multiply, they are able to bind to the villi of the small intestine. And trophozoites which do not bind to the small intestine, they proceed to the large intestine towards the colon. Towards reaching the colon, what happens is that another process takes place known as encystation. And what happens here is that trophozoites are able to produce cysts. And later, these cysts and trophozoites are excreted into the environment via the feces. And once it is excreted into the environment, as earlier stated, the trophozoites do not have any feature that helps them to thrive in harsh conditions. They are not able to survive in the environment, and only a cyst is able to survive in the environment. So when we look at the pathogenesis of the Giardia lamblia, what happens here is that as earlier in the life cycle, we had seen that trophozoites adhere to the intestinal mucosa, and this causes disruption of the intestine. This leads to shortening of microvilli and the epithelial barrier function. And what happens here is that when there is a disruption in the intestine, the malabsorption of fat, vitamin B12, and folic acid happens. And this can lead to mild steatorrhea. Mild steatorrhea is when there is fat in the stool or feces. Furthermore, on the clinical manifestation, 50% of the time it is a asymptomatic case, meaning that there is no signs or symptoms that is presented that could indicate a giardia infection. However, when symptoms are present, it could be diarrhea, abdominal pain and distension, nausea, vomiting, as well as weight loss due to the malabsorption of the nutrients. And the incubation time for these symptoms is approximately 1 to 3 weeks. Let's look into some laboratory diagnosis of Giardia lamblia. The first and common method is the microscopic examination. Here, a wet mount is created using the stool specimen, and trophozoite is examined under saline mount, and they will have a tennis racket-like shape with their leaf-like motility, while cyst will be examined under iodine mount. And it is said that it will have a feature like an old man wearing glasses. Also, it will be oval in shape. Moving on to another test, which is the Entero test. Here, it is like a string test whereby a capsule is attached to a string. The capsule is swallowed by the patient, however, the string is attached to the cheek, and the capsule is dissolved inside the intestine, and it is kept for 4 to 6 hours to take up the duodenal fluid. Once it's done, the string is withdrawn and it is dissolved in saline and shaken to release the trophozoite. So once the trophozoite is released into the saline, it is then again examined microscopically. And last one is the antigen detection, and this can be via the ELISA test. So we are looking for the antigen, Giardia's antigen here. Here in this video, you'll be able to see the feature, or you'll be able to have at least a small idea of what a trophozoite might look like under the microscope. So several drugs can be used to treat Giardia infection. Some are which metronidazole, tinidazole, and nitazoxanide. So some ways in which we can prevent or control Giardia infection is through having access to clean water, and this could be done through boiling drinking water using water filters, and also public water treatment such as adding chlorine to water. The another way in which we can control the spread of Giardia is through improved sanitation. This includes improving sewage disposal and also educating public on good hygiene practices such as washing your hands with soap and water. And it is also advisable for hikers or campers to carry their water bottles instead of opting to drink from streams or lakes. So we have come to the end of this video, and let's just have a quick recap of what we have covered. And in the next slide, the diagram that I have provided, I would highly suggest for you to go to the link and view the video because it's very summarized form of what I have explained in this video. So I'll be recapping the video in the most shortest form. However, I would just suggest you guys to go and have a look at the YouTube video. I have provided the link at the below the diagram and also in the reference page. So just go and have a look at it. It's really simple and you'll be able to understand what this video was about. So firstly, when we look at the picture of the feces, this could indicate that the water is contaminated, and later we see that the backpack guy is collecting unpurified water and handing it to the another person to drink it. This could indicate the transmission mode, which is the fecal oral route of Giardia Lamblia. Next is that the clinical manifestation is shown where campers are holding their nose to indicate foul smelling diarrhea, and also yellow stool would indicate steatoria, which is excess fat in stool, and this is due to the malabsorption of fat. Next, how it is diagnosed in the laboratory. When you see the boat's name, ELISA, so a um, lab test can be done to detect for the Giardia antigen. At the back, you can see a metro, which is which could indicate the metronidazole treatment. That and bubbles would indicate cyst, and this could also indicate that cyst is the mode in which the infection starts. We have reached the end of the video. I hope that you enjoyed and at least learned something about the parasite Giardia lamblia. Thank you for watching.